Thank you for watching QTV News. We take a look at stories making headlines in our news. The Ministry of Transport and Communications has recommended a number of measures aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19, which include the suspension of flights at 3 international airports and suspension of international buses. The Anti-Corruption Commission has launched investigations into allegations that some ministers attempted to bribe some UPND members of parliament so that they can support Bill 10. And State House says President Edgar Lungu has already taken a lead in the coronavirus outbreak in the country. And now the news in detail. The Ministry of Transport and Communications has recommended a number of measures aimed at mitigating the spread of COVID-19, including suspension of international flights at Simon Mwansaka Pwepwe, Hari Mwanga Nkumbula and Mfowe international airports. If approved, the measures will come into effect on 27th March 2020 until further notice. In a letter addressed to the Secretary to the Cabinet dated 24th March 2020, Ministry of Transport and Communications Permanent Secretary Mishek Lungu says other measures include the suspension of all buses carrying cross-border passengers across all international routes and restriction of all local public passenger buses and taxis to reduce the number of passengers and load a maximum of 60% of its capacity on all inter- and intra-city routes. Other recommended measures include the suspension of cross-border cargo with an exception of essential commodities such as food, fuel and health-related products, suspension of all passenger railway services by Tazara and Zambia Railways, and all trucks plying on Zambian roads to be parked in designated parking areas. The measures also include instruction to all inter- and intra-city bus operators to disinfect cabins after offloading passengers, provision of hand sanitizers to all passengers before loading and reduction of the loading capacity to 60% of maximum carrying capacity for all water vessels used for transportation of passengers. And when contacted by Q News to verify the authenticity of the letter, which is circulating on social media, Mr. Lungu acknowledged authoring the letter, but stressed that it was meant for the Secretary to the Cabinet and not for public consumption, questioning how the station got hold of it.
I think that's not for public consumption. It's a letter, and I'm surprised that that letter is circulating. You understand? It's a letter seeking me guidance from higher authorities. So I'm concerned because I need to know who has circulated it. Somebody has sent it to me. I said, but this is a letter. It's not for media consumption. It's a letter, internal consultations. That's it. It's not for public consumption. It's a letter. If that's the document you are referring to, it's a letter to recommend until such a time that the decision is made. That's when you can publish it. If I write a letter to my superiors, I cannot divulge that letter to anybody until my superiors have seen it and have given a go-ahead. So at this stage, that's an internal letter, not for media.
State House says President Edgar Lungu has already taken a lead in dealing with the outbreak of coronavirus in the country. Special Assistant to the President for Press and Public Relations, Isaac Chipampe, says all the ministers that have spoken out about coronavirus have done so under the instruction of the President. Mr. Chipampe says President Lungu receives daily briefs from Health Minister Chitalu Chirufya and gives directives of what should be communicated to the public. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Chipampe says it is therefore unacceptable for anyone to suggest that President Lungu has not taken a lead in dealing with coronavirus as his counterparts in other countries have done. He states that it is in fact the head of state that has first warned Zambians about the coronavirus during his address to Parliament before the virus even spread to African countries. Mr. Chipampe, however, states that the President will speak out on the issue of coronavirus at an appropriate time.
Yeah, you tell those who are saying that he has taken the lead already. Okay? When you see ministers talking, it means the instructions are coming from the President. Okay? Ministers don't just talk from their personal viewpoint. They get it from Cabinet. And the Cabinet is chaired by the President. And the President has been meeting the Minister of Health every day to be briefed about the health situation. And he has been directing the Minister on what should be delivered to the public and what the Minister of Health itself should be doing. So to say that he's not taking the lead is just unacceptable. And also remember, people have been playing some recordings of other presidents, what they have said. If you remember, the president, before this disease even came to Africa and even Europe, we spoke in Parliament, okay? And even warned people about what they should be doing, the preventive measures, and he was very clear that this disease will finally visit our country. So, for someone to say that he has not been taking the lead is just failure to understand how government operates. So anyway, the president will speak.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has instituted investigations into alleged attempts to bribe some UPND members of parliament by some ministers to entice them to vote for the Constitution Amendment Bill number 10 of 2019. ACC spokesperson Timothy Mono says this is notwithstanding the fact that the Commission has not yet received any formal complaint from any of the lawmakers who are said to have been offered a bribe. Mr. Mono has told Q News that it is within the ACC's mandate to investigate all allegations of corruption. He says the Commission is therefore doing something about the revelation that some UPND members of Parliament were allegedly offered money in return for a favour to vote in support of Bill 10. UPND Deputy National Spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa has indicated that the party will report some minister who attempted to bribe its members of Parliament to vote for Bill 10 to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Oh yes, I went to consult and I've been informed that we have not yet received the formal complaint.
But is the ACC taking these suggestions seriously that they would pursue?
Well, it falls within our mandate, so we'll be doing something, yes.
Well, when are we likely to hear that you've begun investigations?
You have heard. We have already heard from it. It's within our mandate, so we are doing something.
The Ministry of Health has marked the commemoration of the World TB Day in virtual form from the usual outdoor event in view of the outbreak of coronavirus. Speaking during the virtual World TB Day commemoration in Lusaka, Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Kennedy Malama says government has noted the need for continued strengthening of health systems in responding to diseases such as tuberculosis, even in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic outbreak. Dr. Malama says TB patients are vulnerable and at a high risk of contracting the coronavirus, hence the need for systems to be put in place to protect them from the pandemic. Here's a report.
24th March 2020 will go down in history as the day that Zambia for the first time joined the rest of the globe in commemorating the World TB Day virtually. The day, which was commemorated under the theme "It's Time for TB-Free Communities Be Involved," was commemorated virtually in a bid to avoid public gatherings in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. The commemoration, which saw various preventive measures aimed at preventing the spread of the COVID-19, which include hand sanitizing, social distancing, as well as few people gathering being adhered to, was preceded by testimonies from TB survivors like Nathan Tileni.
I accepted and started treatment such that by month 2, after the intensive phase of treatment, I was back on track, but the nurses encouraged me to continue the 8 months. I hope my experience will help you too to get cured. Here I am, 17 years later and still going strong. I would like to assure all of you, my brothers and sisters, that TB is curable.
Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Kennedy Malama officiated at the event.
We have good lessons to learn from the global and national response to the coronavirus pandemic now. Even as we mount this response, I repeat, let's ensure that routine service provision in our country is not neglected. Sometimes when you are faced with a challenge, a pandemic of this magnitude, at all levels, our attention may be divided, and we may end up with conditions such as TB, measles, polio being forgotten, including HIV. And that's why it's important for us to focus on strengthening systems, even amidst the pandemic.
Dr. Malama also gave an update on where Zambia is regards the fight against TB.
We also take note of the progress that we are making in reducing the TB incidence and TB deaths. Over the last 2 decades, Zambia has reduced the TB incidence and mortality rates by 54% and 56% respectively. But it's important to remember that we still have a lot of work to do. Further, as a country, we've made exponential progress in TB preventive therapy. In 2019 alone, over 110,000 people living with HIV were commenced on TB prevention therapy, surpassing the performance of 2017 and 2018 combined.
Dr. Nathan Bakaita is WHO country representative.
Ultimately, to end epidemics of TB and other diseases, we need strong health systems as the bedrock for providing universal health coverage. I reaffirm the commitment of my office, the UN family and all partners to work with government and communities to support the above actions.
What role are traditional leaders across the country playing in the fight against TB? This is what they had to say.
And in Impinji, so kumanisha lokanga msongwejima wa muntule wa TB mwenyikala yetu yejima
inonshita tufuire okumona okuti obulwele bwa TB bwapwa na inemondi na imwe bene sindija kuba amenzi inyinaka kwekwe ndathola rubavu
ine pano neinena ngokombali kuti yayi TB yenosira kuti yayi tose
kekimye chakwikala umanyaunda akasuluka ku TB niamua ndimonka mukupwisha.
The event also saw the Russian government and the World Health Organization, through its country representative, Dr. Nathan Bakaita, donate 850 boxes of expert MTB test kits containing 42,500 cartridges, valued at $480,000 United States dollars. Nakaonga, reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
A consortium of organizations representing persons with disabilities says it will report the UPND to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the rights of persons with disabilities who are allegedly demeaning and discriminating against persons with disabilities. Speaking at a media briefing, Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities Acting Director General Julian Mwape has accused the opposition party of repeatedly violating the rights of persons with disabilities. Ms. Mwape has cited an advert depicting a blind man as a symbol of persons with no vision as very demeaning and discriminatory towards people with visual impairment. More in the following report.
A consortium of disabled people's organizations today held a self-representation of persons' disabilities in public and political life. The meeting was aimed at discussing historic injustice experienced by persons with disabilities in their quest to realize and enjoy their rights. Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities Acting Director General Julian Mwape is concerned that the intolerance, violence, and intimidation creates an environment that is hostile for persons with disabilities to participate in the political and public life in the country.
Article 259, subsection 2, where possible, remember I said underline where possible, cancels the mandatory nature of the provision, rendering it discretionary. So it becomes at the discretion of the person who has been given powers to appoint. The regional diversity of the people of Zambia speaks to balance in tribal representation and has nothing to do with minority groupings. Our proposal is an amendment of Clause 47, subsection 2, which should be amended to read, elections to the National Assembly shall be conducted under a mixed member electoral system as prescribed.
And Consortium National Spokesperson Francis Chishala has regretted that its effort to support the current Bill 10 of 2019 with recommendations of the Select Committee taken into account has been politicized by some circles.
But we regret, underline that one, we regret that our efforts to support the current bill with the recommendations of the Select Committee taken into account has been politicized by some circles.
Other members appealed to all MPs to support Bill 10 as it will help persons with disabilities to be part of governance.
As persons with disabilities, because there is no voice there. If there are going to be a voice there, this what we are seeing as injustice in our community would be nowhere near us. The minus of a voice there is what we are making us be in our status quo.
And so their impact may not be so much. And that's why we are saying we need self-representation, where people are elected to parliament because they have been given the mandate to speak issues of people with disabilities.
On social media, you start to wonder what people think about this bill 10. And there are certain people that are saying, no, but bill 10, this bill 10. But people are forgetting that we need laws to govern ourselves. And bill 10 is a very law that we can govern ourselves. And to be able
if it goes to parliament. And politicians in Zambia, I know it's very progressive, but without persons with disability, it can't move forward. So my only try is for us to work together.
All the members of parliament, especially from the opposition, to support that bill, especially for us persons with disabilities. You see there in South Africa. South Africa is very near to Zambia. We've got all persons with disabilities represented in parliament. Even in Uganda, it's happening. Kenya, it's happening. Zimbabwe, just our neighbor near here, it's happening. Why should we continue suffering because of some selfish interests of other opposition political party MPs? No.
Nakanyika reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
The Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition Alliance is happy to note that millers under the tripartite agreement who are accessing maize from Food Reserve Agency have increased the supply of mealie meal on the market as agreed with the provincial administration in Lusaka. Country Coordinator Matthews Mahuru has also noted that milling companies have started indicating the retail price of 136 kwacha on 25 kg bags of breakfast mealie meal. Mr. Mahuru says this will prevent the exploitation of consumers by retailers, especially in compounds where the commodity is selling beyond the recommended price of 136 kwacha. He says a check in various chain stores and other outlets in Lusaka has revealed stability in the supply of mealie meal by milling companies accessing maize from the FRA, among them Champion and African Milling Companies. Meanwhile, Mr. Mahuru has noted with regret that some retailers, especially Rwandese and Burundian nationals, have continued selling mealie meal between 170 and 210 kwacha after buying the commodity in bulk from ShopRite and other chain stores.
Shortage of mealie meal in most parts of the country becomes a source of food insecurity. So most households during the period of shortage were actually fetching a bag of mealie meal for as high as over 200 kwacha, which is beyond the reach of just the average household in Zambia. So but now with government coming in with just supplying maize to millers and asking them to take actions that would stop the exploitation of the consumer has been a good move. So we also noticed that certain millers are actually printing on the bags that the bags of mealie meal were not for sale, and also some of them going to an extent of actually printing the resale price, which is about 136. So that is commendable, and we want government to really consider issues of food security, with a priority that is.
MMD National Secretary Elizabeth Chitika has announced that the former ruling party will hold its national convention in the third quarter of 2020. Mrs. Chitika says the convention will be called 30 days before the actual day in line with Article 14, Cap 2 of the MMD Constitution. She has explained that in line with the same constitutional provision, the National Executive Committee will decide on the exact month to hold the convention. Speaking at a media briefing in Lusaka, Mrs. Chitika has explained that all those party members that have not regularized their membership will not be allowed to take part in the convention. She states that all those in bad standing with the party have amnesty between now and the summoning of the convention to ask for forgiveness. Mrs. Chitika has also disclosed that the MMD will soon launch a new party manifesto which will be aligned to the topical issues in the country.
You see, our constitution is very, very clear. We can have tentative dates, but the moment we just say we are going to have a convention, the NEC are going to sit, and 30 days down the line, before that date, we are going to have our convention, and an announcement is going to be done. This is why it is important that all the members who are in bad standing in the party should regularize their membership now, because they will not attend that convention if they remain in bad standing. An amnesty has been issued. An amnesty has been issued by the president, and there's still a window in which these people should come back to the party and apologize, and they are going to be included. But if they want to decide to be speaking outside the party structure, they are not going to be listened to. We are in control of things, so what we need are youths, what we need are women that are going to abide by the party constitution. In each and every organization, there are rules. And if any one of those people breaks the law, you know, they need to be punished. So these people are in bad standing, so we are giving them an opportunity to regularize their membership to the party and let them come, and the party will welcome them.
The opposition People's Alliance for Change has wondered why government is not closing the country's borders to coronavirus high-risk countries like other nations such as South Africa have done. Party leader Anford Banda believes that the revelations by Minister of Health, Dr. Chitalu Chirufya, that Zambia has recorded 3 cases of COVID-19 is reason enough to put in place a travel ban on visitors from high-risk countries and those leaving the country for business and holidays. Mr. Banda says this should also be extended to government officials such as ministers, permanent secretaries and directors who make unnecessary international trips at the expense of the grappling economy. He adds that government should also cancel visas for visitors from high and medium risk countries.
Therefore, our call is that, you know, the government should cancel all flights from places where, you know, there's high risk or which have got a lot of cases of coronavirus. This has to be done immediately. What we are saying is that we're not saying that the government is going to ban these flights for a long time. We are saying that this temporary measure must be effected now, ensure that we put our house in order, take control of everything so that we do not let this virus, you know, grow at a faster rate. We understand that, you know, when people come from abroad, they are picked by drivers. Drivers could be taxi drivers or drivers' colleagues or anybody who may also transmit the disease, you know, to the homes, you know, where they stay, and then those people that stay in the
Zambia is expected to receive its allocation of the COVID-19 testing kit, masks, and medical use protective suits donated to African countries by Chinese billionaire Jack Ma. Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia and permanent representative to African Union Emmanuel Mwamba says Zambia has been allocated 20,000 coronavirus testing kits, 100,000 masks, and 1,000 medical use protective suits and shields. Mr. Mwamba says the first batch of the coronavirus support consignment for African Union member states, including Zambia, arrived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on Sunday, 22nd March 2020 for onward dispatch. He says the allocation for Zambia has since been dispatched to Zambia through Ethiopian Airlines. Mr. Mwamba has since thanked the Alibaba Group and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for the donation and coordination of the consignment for Africa. Meanwhile, Mr. Mwamba has advised Zambians planning to travel to Ethiopia to take note that with effect from Monday, 23rd March 2020, all travelers to that country will be placed under mandatory quarantine at approved and designated hotels for a period of 14 days at their own expense, except for travelers in transit.
First of all, I would like to thank the Jack Ma Foundation for the donation they've made to Africa. Yesterday on Sunday, we received the first batch of consignment for testing kits against the COVID-19 virus. Zambia will receive 20,000 testing kits and other support things like 100,000 masks and 1,000 medical use protective clothing. These will be dispatched through Ethiopian Airlines as soon as possible. We are frantically working with the authorities here in Addis Ababa to ensure that the consignment for Zambia arrives on time. As you are aware, Ethiopia has implemented various measures, including a mandatory quarantine measure. What this means is that you will be put in quarantine at a designated hotel at your own cost for a minimum period of 14 days. So,
Caritas Zambia has encouraged small-scale farmers in the country to seriously consider venturing into organic farming. Caritas Zambia Director Eugene Kabirika says organic farming practices reduce pollution, conserve water, reduce soil erosion, increase soil fertility, and use less energy. Hence the need for small-scale farmers to embrace it. Mr. Kabirika says it is a fact that a good percentage of what is consumed in the country is produced by small-scale farmers, hence the need for farmers to be encouraged to use good agriculture methods and practices. He has stressed the need for the Ministry of Agriculture to intensify sensitization of small-scale farmers across the country on the need to embrace organic farming.
We need a complete change of the way we grow crops in agriculture. We know there's one way that we are all schooled into. You know, there's what is referred to as industrial agriculture. Use tractors, use fertilizer, use all that kind of thing so that to produce more, we have a big farm, clear trees and all that. And that produces food, a lot of food. Of course it does. But you, like World Food Program, or they'll tell you that actually the greatest amount of food that we eat in the world comes from small-scale farmers. Even here in Zambia, more than 60% of what we actually eat in terms of maize, tomato, vegetable and all comes from small-scale farmers. A good government will target those. How can we improve their productivity? There are many ways of improving their productivity. In fact, this time as a country, we should be moving towards organic farming. We should be moving towards what now we are referring as regenerative farming. Some call it agroecology. It has so many names. Agroecology, organic farming, sustainable farming and all that. But we prefer to call it agroecology.
Ministry of Finance says it will remain resolute in ensuring that the rural finance policy and strategy and other policies relating to the enhancement of financial inclusion remain a priority as they have a bearing on reducing inequalities and vulnerability as stated in the 7th National Development Plan. Ministry of Finance Rural Finance Unit Investment and Debt Management Principal Economist Brenda Chanda said this during the Provincial Rural Finance Policy and Strategy Dissemination meeting held in Solwezi. Details in this report.
Government through the Ministry of Finance is alive to the fact that enhancing financial inclusion to the financially underserved rural communities is a springboard to accelerate rural development through poverty reduction and inequalities. A team from the Rural Finance Unit, which was established as a result of government's commitment to enhance financial inclusion and foster rural development, was in Northwestern Province to disseminate the rural finance policy and strategy to various stakeholders.
As the Ministry of Finance, we will continue to engage the civic leaders and all ministries and departments on this important agenda to ensure that the commitments pronounced under the rural finance policy and strategy are adhered to, and also to discuss any new developments that can be incorporated to make the rural finance policy and strategy more responsive to the needs of the rural population. I further wish to state that the Ministry of Finance will remain resolute in ensuring that the rural finance policy and strategy, as well as other policies relating to the enhancement of financial inclusion, remain a priority as they have a bearing on reducing inequality and vulnerability as espoused in the National Development Plan.
The dissemination of finance policy to stakeholders has cheered provincial administration.
The dissemination of the rural financing policy strategy is therefore a welcome move as its implementation will help to upscale various initiatives aimed at enhancing financing inclusion in the rural areas.
Ministry of Finance economist highlights the policy objectives.
Of the rural finance policy and strategy, which is ultimately to have a well-resourced, vibrant rural communities ultimately. That's the long-term vision of the rural finance policy and strategy. We believe this can be achieved through rural finance and ultimately financial inclusion. Also, the rationale behind this policy and strategy is policy coherence. Are we moving in one direction? All line government ministries, all stakeholders, are we preaching the same message of rural finance?
The hope lies in the implementation of this policy to address the challenge of inadequate access to financial services among individuals and businesses in rural areas without leaving anyone behind. Emma Chanda reporting for Zanis in Solwezi District, Northwestern Province.
The Poultry Association of Zambia Executive Manager Dominic Chanda says the effect of coronavirus on the hospitality industry has had a trickle-down effect on the poultry industry. Mr. Chanda says the effect on COVID-19 on hotels in Livingstone, Lusaka and the Copperbelt means that demand for chickens has also been affected. He adds that this, coupled with the restriction on social gatherings such as kitchen parties and other large gatherings. Meanwhile, Mr. Chanda has attributed the rise in the price of feed to the depreciation of the kwacha, considering that the mode of exchange for the imported premixed ingredients is the dollar. Mr. Chanda says although the soya cake used in feed production is made locally, it is traded in United States dollars, thereby affecting prices.
Alternatively, if we can still continue exporting dairy chicks into DRC, as an example, DRC will have an alternative now to import the stock feed. From South Africa and from Brazil, whose landing cost in DRC will be much lower than our landing cost. And given the porousness of our border and ineffective monitoring system and tracking system, it becomes actually a very, very dynamic area, such that we might be able to find the imported stock feed into the domestic market, which will have a ripple effect, not only for the poultry industry, but for those that are actually growing maize and soybeans in the country. So government must be able to sit down, I think, with the private sector and chart the way forward. And then come up with measures that will be able to be implemented for the benefits of this country.
A traditional leader in Mwense district of Lopula province has appealed to his subjects to take seriously the monthly cleaning activities for the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Healthy campaign. Chief Luwunda, who participated in the monthly cleaning activities, says the campaign has helped to fight waterborne diseases such as cholera. Details in this report.
Stakeholders from all walks of life in Mwense district of Lopula province have embraced the monthly Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Health campaign being spearheaded by the local authority. The monthly cleaning campaign has seen traditional leaders, together with their subjects, also having full participation. Chief Luwunda of the Chinga people of Mwense district was among those who turned up for last month's cleaning activities, which took place at Luwunda market.
Government for bringing up Keep Zambia Clean, because if we keep our environment clean, then we are discarding the diseases which we can invite. There will be no cholera and other diseases or the other viruses to be in our chiefdom.
Mwense Town Council Secretary Betty Swaniso takes the leading role in the weekly and monthly cleaning activities.
All residents have appreciated the initiative or the directive that was made by the President for making Zambia clean, green and healthy. And even it has trickled down to the traditional leadership who have now taken it up on themselves to spearhead the cleaning every last Saturday of the month. So this has really improved even the livelihood of the communities in Mwense, in that we have clean surroundings, the areas are green, and we promise that we will keep making our Zambia, contributing to making our Zambia clean, green and healthy.
And Happy Chiwe, a Seventh-day Church elder who was part of the cleaning team at Luwunda Market, said members of the Seventh-day Church will continue implementing the monthly activities on Sundays.
pali checho bajita fo ba 7th day na funa tutemo panto tole bomba fino fine pasande uko avulo kufirwa kanshi mkwai bale tukosele shafye na ifo yene twakulaba abatemo kabili abansansa pamona imfumu Yesu mwata balubunda mchalo cheso kanshi mkwai nga fintu mwamana na pawa mishi wa vuino pamoneka vuino na bantu na besa bonse ba 7th day na besa mkubomba.
The involvement of the traditional leaders in the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Health campaign demonstrate the seriousness of the program, which all well-meaning people should embrace. Lewis Changwa reporting for Zanisi News in Mwense District, Wapura Province.
Finally, in our news, Born Short Living Tour, a local NGO has partnered with BEP Zambia, an ICT company, to embark on a program dubbed 10Pm Zambia, aimed at minimizing the educational disruption caused by COVID-19. Organization Executive Director Talasha Chisha says the program will facilitate the continuity of the learning, especially for the most vulnerable in society. Mr. Chisha explains that the 10Pm Zambia is an e-learning platform which will focus on providing lessons for school-going children in key subjects such as science, mathematics, biology, English, and civic education. He states that the lessons will be broadcast live on television, Facebook, YouTube, eTwip, and other digital platforms. Mr. Chisha says the program endeavors to help complement government efforts in making sure that school-going children continue to access lessons in a safe and healthy environment. To end the news, we recap on stories making headlines. The Ministry of Transport and Communications has recommended that a number of measures aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19, which include the suspension of flights at 3 international airports and suspension of international buses. The Anti-Corruption Commission has launched investigations into allegations that some ministers attempted to bribe some UPND members of parliament so that they can support Bill 10. And State House says President Edgar Lungu has already taken a lead in dealing with the coronavirus outbreak in the country. That item brings us to the end of the news. Thank you for watching.